Ugh.
Are we ready to start?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, hello everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jose Puente. I work with First Generation Initiatives, and welcome to Why is Grad School Important? Today, Samantha Borrego and Tisha Townsend will talk to us about why grad school is important. Right now, I will provide the link to the sign in. So, if you attend two of our workshops, you will be able to qualify to be in a drawing for an Amazon gift card. So, please sign in. And without further ado, take it away, Sam and Tisha.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Um, well, never mind. I won't share too much information right now, but I'm really excited to talk with you all. So, Tisha, do you want to say anything about introducing yourself? Maybe I should say what I do. So, again, I'm Sam Borrego. I'm the coordinator for First Generation Initiatives, and I am a first generation student myself, which is part of why I'm excited to talk to you all about this topic. I have now been out of grad school for 5 years, which is wild to me that it's flown by. But it was definitely an important part of my experience in my life. And so we'll be talking about some of the benefits that we personally experienced and different things like that.
Yeah. And I will, just as a caveat, I'm Tisha. For those of you who haven't already met me, I'm an advisor with Trio Student Support Services. I am currently in a grad program. It's actually my second time in grad school. When I first graduated, I was in a program and then I didn't like it. So I took a break and then I'm back into a different program. And I'll talk about that more later. But yeah.
Ooh. So the first thing that we want to talk about is what is graduate school? So a lot of people who are first gen may not have heard this term before. So people often say grad school or graduate school, but you can think about it as the next step after your undergraduate degree. And your undergraduate degree is like a bachelor's. So a graduate degree would be something like a master's, a PhD or doctorate level degree, a JD for like law school. You may have heard things like EDD or seen it on your professor's signature line that they are, Sam Borrego, comma EDD, which means that they're a doctor of education. So there's different types of degrees that you can get, and we can go into specifics if you all have questions about that. But basically, you can think of graduate school as a more advanced degree, more focused degree, and the second step after your undergraduate degree. And something else that I wanted to point out is that people normally will do a bachelor's degree and then a master's and then a doctorate level degree, but not always. If you were sitting in on the call with Dr. Lyons, who shared her story last week, you would have heard, and you can watch on our YouTube channel, that she actually went straight from finishing her bachelor's to doing her PhD. So sometimes that can happen, and it just varies by program and discipline on how that process works. Did you have anything, Tisha, you want to add?
Nope.
Okay. So Tisha and I came up with the top 4 reasons we think it's important to go to graduate school. And one is mostly around empowerment. We really want to empower you all to increase the number of first-gen students that are represented in graduate programs and that are completing graduate level degrees. There are also a lot of financial benefits that we'll talk about and share some data with you. There's a really big opportunity to do what you love. And yes, you can do what you love because of your undergraduate degree, but getting a master's or higher level degree allows you to get advancement and to be able to focus on that passion and maybe have credentials that set you apart. And that can better help you be in a position to do what you love and to reach life goals as far as the position that you see yourself attaining or the type of work that you see yourself doing. I'm going to keep pausing just to see if you have anything to add, Tisha.
I'm good.
Okay. Cool. Now we're going to talk about first gen representation. So, oh, go ahead. I couldn't tell if you were talking. Okay. As you can see, there's only about 30% of first-gen students that apply for graduate programs once they're in their final year of school. And then there was very little data that Tisha and I could find about how many first-gen students are actually enrolled in graduate level programs currently. And we wanted to bring that up as a way of why we should encourage you all to go and to continue getting more schooling. And just that there isn't a lot of research on our experience as first-gen students and how, the challenges that we face in graduate school. There's a lot on the undergraduate level, but there hasn't been until recently a whole lot of focus on what happens after undergraduate. Like, what do we do in our careers? What do we do in graduate school? And those types of things after. And so we think that it's an example of we should increase the numbers and increase the amount of people who are going and getting their degree. And then one statistic that we could find is that there's about 30% of students in doctoral programs identify as first generation. And this is also significant just because of the number. If you think about it as a funnel, we have this many first gen students that go to college, graduate, go down and down and down, that then go into graduate level degrees. So 30% of first-gen students being represented in doctoral programs is, I think it's kind of small, but also kind of significant at the same time. And I think we can just keep increasing that number. Okay.
Okay, so I think there's a few reasons why there is, kind of to talk about what Sam was saying earlier, why there isn't a lot of representation of first-gen students in grad school. Like Sam said, there's been lots of research on undergraduates who identify also as first-gen, but little about graduate students who identify as first-gen. And so the little bit of information that we did find is really interesting when you begin to disaggregate the data in other ways, which we'll show you in a little bit. But I think the reason why first-gen students enter graduate school at lower rates compared to their peers, there's a lot of economic reasons. Grad school is very expensive. Depending on what, like, say, if you wanted to go to law school or med school, we're definitely talking very, very high price tags for those degrees. There are some programs that are a little bit more affordable, just depending on, what field you are wanting to go into. But when you start pricing grad schools, particularly if you're already having debt as an undergraduate, it can be intimidating. And it's just like, well, I'm barely graduating, or I've been working this job and I know I can't, afford $80,000 of student loans, say, for example. And that can be intimidating. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit more in ways to kind of look at it as more of an investment and actually show how those degrees actually do pay for themselves after time. There's also some social reasons behind why a lot of first-gen students don't pursue degrees beyond a bachelor's degree. I think, much like with being an undergrad as a first-gen student, we don't have a lot of guidance from our families, probably from our parents, telling us like, hey, oh, this is how you apply for financial aid, or this is how you navigate this one particular system of being in college. And the same goes for graduate school. there's even less knowledge when coming from our families when it comes to graduate school, because a lot of the questions we'll get, like, well, why do you need it, why do you need to go to more school, or why is it so expensive, or why is it necessary that you are in school for so long, like, can't you get this done faster? And so that can be a lot of part of the reasons why a lot of first gen students don't go to pursue their graduate degrees and beyond. It's really, really important as you begin to explore not only your undergraduate degree, like as far as what are you going to major, but as you get closer to graduation, questions like, do I need to have a master's degree? Sometimes the answer is yes. Will it help me to get that job, or making me more of a viable candidate when applying for certain jobs? And there's just certain positions that you're not going to be able to apply for because you don't have the degrees to say that you have the knowledge to be able to do that job. And so sometimes you may not have people in your life saying, yeah, you need to get a degree, or this is the path that you can take to get your degree. I see a question here. Is there affordable grad schools? There are, depending on what it is that you're studying. And it depends, like, what is affordable to you, because I think that's going to mean different things for different people. So that's why it's really important to do your research. We have a workshop that talks a little bit about this. I think it's coming up. Is it coming up, Sam? Sorry, they're all running together. It's tomorrow. A lot of workshops.
I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah, so we do have a workshop that discusses how to pay for grad school. I think it is tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow we do have a workshop. It says how to pay for grad school, and it starts from 10 to 11 tomorrow.
Great, thank you. There's another question that says define affordable. Like I said, I think that's going to mean different things to different people. It's going to mean different things depending on what field you go into. Like, say, for example, if you're going to go into social work, it will behoove you to go and get your master's degree. That being said, social workers typically don't make a lot of money. So that's one way to look at it. But there's other degrees. I'm trying to think, like, if you got an MBA, chances are you're going to be making pretty good money. And regardless of the price, because there's, different programs, the MBA program, it's really popular these days, and lots of universities offer them. And you just really have to shop around, one, to see what is the base cost of your degree, and two, which we're going to talk about in the workshop tomorrow, is how can you look for getting help funding your degree, because you don't have to necessarily rely on your own self to pay for your degree. We're going to be talking tomorrow about ways to get your degree paid for, if not entirely. What are other ways that you can supplement the funding of your degree? So I don't want to define, like, what affordable is, because what's affordable for me might not be affordable to the next person. And it depends very much on, the field you're going into, how much your earning potential is going to be.
Those are great questions.
Do we want to move on to the next slide?
Sure. Really quick, one thing I forgot to add here is Tisha and I were brainstorming, and Jose, because the three of us planned these workshops, but we spent so much time trying to find first-gen people who have gone to graduate school. And let me tell you, it was one of the most difficult things to think of. And I think that's just another example of some of the things Tisha said, but how I want to encourage you all so that you can come back and share your story and your experiences with other first-gen students, because it was hard. Like, and some people where I was like, oh, I know this person that's getting their degree, whatever, at this school, and then I'd be like, oh crap, they're not first gen. And the chances of us going, I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but it's just not as common as people who have parents who get degrees. And so I really want to encourage all of you to just keep going. If it makes sense, there's ways to pay for it. Get your graduate degree.
Yep.
Okay, next slide. We're going to talk about some of the financial benefits, because again, that is a really big reason for you to go. So this slide is showing you a table, and it's just a few select degrees, and it shows you how much is someone on average making a year with, biology, math, nursing, etc., with their bachelor's degree, and then the second column for master's degree. And so if you take a minute to just look, pretty much all of them, you see at least a couple $1,000s difference. Some of the ones towards the bottom, there's not as much of a difference there. But for the majority of the other ones, you can see that there's a pretty good jump in how much you're making with bachelor's compared to master's degree. So I think that alone is a really good reason to consider getting a master's degree, is just the way, and I didn't know this because this is not how my mama, like, she gets paid a certain amount hourly. So I didn't know that the way people assess your salary is based on experience, education, and I forgot what else, but those two things are really big. And so if you have more education, you have a higher threshold of how much money you can actually be making. And so this is how this is going to benefit you. And then on average, what I found is that yearly people who get an advanced degree, master's, PhD kind of thing, make 20 to 30,000 more annually than those who don't. So that's just like an average number. Of course, it varies by field, which you notice here. And then Tisha will talk about some other variables. So something important here, which is what Tisha mentioned a little bit ago, is getting a graduate degree where it makes sense. And so if you're maybe in English and literature or journalism and mass communication, I think it would be a good conversation for you, and actually with all of these, to talk to faculty members that you like, to talk to your advisor, and to start asking questions about, does it make sense for me to go to graduate school? What are some of my options? How can this benefit me in this field? Where can I go in this field if I do get a master's or doctorate, whatever? But start having those conversations now.
Yep. And I mean, I think it's super important to stress. I mean, I'm not trying to sound repetitive, but for some of these fields, like say biology, you can get, decent jobs with a biology degree. It may not even be specifically in a field having to do with science, but if you do want to go into the science fields, you are going to need a minimum of a master's degree in order to, work on a certain level, either with patients, or it's really your degrees that you have are going to determine the capacity in which you're going to be able to work with people and the kind of jobs that you're actually going to be qualified for. So that's something, as you are deciding on your major as an undergraduate, and then as you're looking to graduate and see what comes next, it's super, super important to explore what your options for work are going to be, and if you're going to need higher degrees. Okay, so I think this is something for me. I think it's super important to point out, not only when we're talking about first generation students, but when we're looking at, say, income by race and degree. And so, it got cut off the shoot.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, I think I remember. So how these are coded, color coded. So dang it. Can I pause this? Because I want to find the actual,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm not lying, because I want to say the larger one is by race. Asian is the highest income earners.
Oh.
So if we look at that, and then white, I think the white one is actually all races, and then white is going to be, sorry, let me,
Yeah.
I want to find that.
We can pause.
Give me just a second really quick here.
Yeah, while you're doing that, Jose, are there any questions in the chat?
No questions so far. Right now we're just looking at the comments, saying how expensive university here is. For example, Stephanie saying that the Masters of Health Administration at MSU Denver is $36,000, so that's quite a lot.
I think,
So,
yes. Oh, go ahead. You can add, Stephanie.
so actually, I was asking Jamie because Jamie mentioned that MBAs cost about 22,000 for the virtual information, and then mentions that the MHAs, and I want to make sure that's the Masters of Health Administration. What you're talking about, Jamie?
Yeah, so I've been sitting in on their virtual informationals. Last night was the MBA virtual informational for Metro State's MBA program, and they spoke to that as 22,000 is about what they think it'll cost. A couple weeks ago, they had the Masters of Health Administration virtual informational, and because of how interactive it is and the payout once you receive your MHA, they charge around 36,000 is what they estimate is the cost of that degree. And it's the same with demand in the healthcare programs, and then how people use the MHA. I mean, looking at my notes, it said that there's an 18% suggested increase in that job, as well as a guaranteed, once you have your MHA, you make $99,000 a year. So 36,000 to them doesn't sound like a lot because you're going to be making 3 times that once you finish their program.
Jamie, that is a good example.
Yeah, I went to their meeting about 2 semesters ago, and they were fairly cheaper than 36,000. I believe that they were also charging $22,000. So it's very incredible to me that it increased over a period of 2 semesters.
And that happens a lot. Like, you all can expect, just because of the way higher ed funding works, and then right now with everything going on, the way that we make up for not getting a lot of money to the institution federally and by state is we then charge students more money. So that is something, unfortunately, that you all are going to have to take into consideration, is that the ticket price for your graduate programs is going to go up. But something that I think Tisha mentioned earlier, and I know for sure she will have in her workshop tomorrow, is just how important it is to shop around. So just like the questions you're asking, and Jamie, the notes that you've been taking and all that, that's so important to do with everything. Like, look at how much money they offer you in scholarships, how much, if they have institutional grants. I had a work assistantship, so I got paid to work and to take classes, and so I could use it for rent, and it went towards my tuition, all that. So I didn't really pay a whole lot for my graduate degree, but it just varies by program. So I would suggest, if money is a concern for you, that you just do your homework on how much money is this program actually going to give me, even if maybe their price is 36 and another school says that they're 55. Like, if the one that's going to give, if it costs 55 is going to give you more money, then that one might be a better choice, or something like that. You know what I mean? Tisha, were you able to find?
Yeah, I did. Can I steal the screen for a sec? Just to share this particular, can somebody give me credit, permission? Grants me permission. I was like, grant me credit.
How do I do it? Do I just stop?
DU offers the MHA program for 35,000. So I think when they were talking about it in their informational, they might have mentioned like 36,000 overall, so including all of your demands, tuition, books, all of that, just to try and make it an understanding. Like, yes, it's a lot up front, but you're going to be rendering a lot after once you apply for places. So yeah, I think it also goes off of school, like what the school's known for. If you want to get a law degree from Rutgers and a law degree from DU, you're going to get different offers. So yeah.
That's true.
Okay, so really quick, when we're looking about earnings based on race and degree type. So if we're looking at, you all are getting your bachelor's degree and possibly going into grad school. So it looks like Asian are typically the top earners in almost every category, with the exception of like maybe with an associate's degree, um, and lower. And then we have the little bit of a darker green, Hispanic, and typically Black African Americans are going to be a little bit higher earnings. But then we have whites. So between Asian and whites, we have very high earnings in almost every category. And so I bring that up to mention, you know, there's some obvious disparities. There's some obvious, there's some reasons, some systemic reasons why there are differences by race in earnings, regardless of, you know, putting people that have the same degrees. It doesn't mean you're going to earn the same amount of money as the next person. And so we're going to break this down in a variety of different ways for you. But just to show you, you know, there's low income students in every single racial category. You know, that's one thing that can be said. So when you're taking that into consideration, I think it's really important to be aware of like why these happens. I think low income people, not always, but generally, you know, tend to be a little bit lower income compared to some other individuals. And so, you know, these are some of the reasons why it's super important to get degrees, particularly as people of color, because we are already, you know, with the same degrees as our white counterparts, we're already going to be earning less money anyways with bachelor's or master's degrees. And so the more of us that there are, the more people of color that there are with higher degrees, obtaining higher positions because they have those degrees to earn them those positions, the more things are going to change over time. And so it's just another reason, you know, not only is it going to help improve your life, but you as a person of color, if that's how you identify, are going to help pave the way for people coming behind you. And so that's why not only as a first generation student, but for those of us who identify as people of color, it's even more important for us to get into those positions for ourselves and for those who are coming behind us. And then I will stop sharing the screen so we can move on to the next slide. Sorry.
We do have some questions, Tisha.
Yep.
The first one is, I really am interested in grad school, but I don't want to do it right away. Will this hurt my chances of getting a scholarship for grad school?
No, it shouldn't. It also, depending on what program you're applying for, your university may be looking at your current work experience. That's something else to take into consideration. This is a question that's going to be addressed in a little bit more detail in the workshop tomorrow. But generally speaking, no, the amount of time away from school won't dictate because your scholarship is probably going to be one based on if you have any kind of financial need. Two, depending on the school that you go to, there's going to be certain scholarships available for certain students. And if you meet that identity criteria, whatever that may be, whether it be a woman in engineering or, you know, there's all different ways that scholarships are set up for certain groups of people. So no, short answer, no.
And
Thank
I saw
you.
this one program that I was looking at with a student, and they actually required 3 years of working experience before even applying to the program. So again, it's going to vary by each program.
Yep. Okay. Is this yours, Sam? Or mine?
No, for you.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So we're disaggregating the data in a different way. We're talking men versus women. So it's I think we all know now that generally speaking, men make more money than women in almost every category for any position, regardless of level experience and even regardless of your education. So if you look at, we're talking bachelor's degree. As a woman, we are going to be making, and this is weekly, so we're going to be making about a little over $300 less weekly than our male counterparts with the same degrees. When we get into our more advanced degrees, there's a little bit more of a gap. It's over $500 less that women are making than men. So it's another reason why it's super important, not only as women, even more so if you identify as a woman of color, that we get into these higher positions. To get to these higher positions, sometimes we need to get higher degrees. And so the more of us that are in there, that means that we're going to be in positions of power where we can make those changes. whether it be, making changes in policies, whether within, on a federal level, on a state level, within companies. It's really important that we are paving the way for each other. And I think, I know personally for me, I don't have a master's degree yet, but, in the few positions of power that I do have, I want to see women in particularly succeed me, say in leadership positions. I want to see women very specifically in those positions, because we don't get those opportunities very often. It's mostly men. It's mostly white men, that end up with these higher level positions in a lot of these big companies. I'm just using our school as an example. If you look at the people that are at the very top levels in positions of power, making all the school policies, like over everything that affects you as a student, it's mostly white men, then it's mostly white women. And so we need to change that. And the only way that we can change that is getting in those degrees and getting in those positions.
Okay. So this is another chart that breaks up earnings, but it's lifetime earnings and it's in the millions and thousands. Tisha, do you remember?
I don't know where this came from, but I don't know.
I forgot just now. I think it's thousands, but it's over your lifetime, how much you earn, and then it's comparing female, male, and then it just breaks it up by graduate degree.
If this is lifetime, it's probably millions, it looks like.
Okay.
Yep.
Millions.
Gosh, look at that disparity. Men with graduate degrees earning over 2 million more than women with graduate degrees. That's ridiculous. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty drastic. And again, we couldn't show you numbers specifically for first gen, but our first gen identities are very intersectional. And so we're men, women, gender non-binary cannot be represented here because they're doing this just based on sex. But we're people of color, we're not people of color. Like there's a lot of different variables that come into our identity. But this is just some information so that you all know kind of the context and what's happening. Is it cool? Do we want to pause for questions before we go into the next part?
I've got a quick question about the metrics on this one. What's the blue versus red?
Let me try to pull it up from the shoot. I'll try to pull it up if you want to take another question in the meantime while I find it.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, when we put this in the slide, it kind of...
No, it's fine. Either way, it's still like really scary, but I just was curious.
Yeah. Are there any other questions?
Okay, Sam, I got it. So the blue is gross income without controls, and then the red is net income with controls.
Right. And so controls was they consider different variables like current income status, different job types are obviously going to influence how much you make, stuff like that.
Okay, awesome. That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. We wanted to share a little bit with you all about our own experiences with graduate school and just how it's helped us in different ways. And so Tisha is going to start by sharing her story on how it has helped her to start working towards her graduate degree.
Yeah, so I graduated from Metro in the spring of 2017. And that was a very long road for me. I took a very scenic route in pursuing my degree. I had to work full time. Living on my own in Denver was very expensive. So I never was able to go to school full time. I don't have parents that were able to support me while I was in school. My parents work very hard, but they don't have that kind of money. And so I would take 3 classes at a time each semester, and I usually took semesters or the summer off because it was just a lot. Um, and so I will also mention I'm a high school dropout. I dropped out of high school when I was 17. I probably wasn't going to graduate in time anyways. I think actually I probably would have. I think they were sliding me through, but there's no way, and there's no way that I should have graduated if I was going to, but I dropped out. Um, and so when I was like in my early 20s, I decided to, I should go to school because I was tired of waiting tables. And so I waited tables to support my way through school. My last year, I worked 2 jobs. I worked waiting tables, and then I worked at Trio, where I currently work as an advisor, but I worked there as a student my last year. So, it took me 10 years to get my bachelor's degree. I did change my mind a few times along the way, which is part of why it took so long between that, taking a semester off here and there, and then just not being able to go full time is why it took me so long. And so when I finally was able to graduate, one of the picture here in the middle is of me with the computer behind me. That was my first day on my job that I currently have. I couldn't believe that they gave me an office because I just waited tables my whole life. Like that's what I knew. And I couldn't believe that I had my own office. And I was so like, I honestly was like, even thinking about it, like it almost makes me want to cry because I just was like, wow, I worked so hard to get here. And I always thought like I'd be in education in some way. I actually was originally studying to be a teacher. Um, so I always had this vision of like, ooh, it'd be cool to have my own office and I can have books, like my bookshelf. And like, it was just this vision that I had for myself. And then to see that realized finally, after so long of working so hard, was really a big moment for me. And so I think one of the biggest impacts, and I was talking to Sam about this yesterday. One of the biggest impacts that I have seen in my life is the ability to have paid time off. If I get sick, my boss does not want me coming into work. I don't have to explain why I don't feel well. It could be that I need a mental health day, and all I have to do is text my boss and say, hey, and I'm lucky that I have a very understanding boss in that regard. All I have to do is text her and say, hey, I'm not feeling well. I'm taking today off. And I don't have to worry about losing income. And for me, that is huge because I remember waiting tables and being so sick, but I couldn't take a week off because if I took a week off, there's bills that were not going to get paid, period. I couldn't afford to take, sometimes I could afford to take, 1 or 2 days off, but to take an entire week off, not planned, would be a blow to my finances. And so being able to do that, like even still 3 years later, like I get nervous when I get sick because I still have this anxiety of like, oh, what happens if I don't work? But I'm having to learn to be like, hey, like it's okay. You don't have to work. You're still going to get paid. Having health insurance is amazing. From coming from somebody who does have health issues, I have an autoimmune disease. And for the longest time, I didn't do anything about it because I didn't have health insurance and I didn't have money to find out what was going on with me when I wasn't feeling well, because that included blood work and tests and medication that I couldn't afford. And so being able to have health insurance where, if I don't feel well, all I have to do is make a doctor's appointment for the littlest thing, which I'm in this habit that I don't do that, but if I wanted to, I could. And so, from somebody who I feel like I struggled financially a lot, I was on my own a lot, in my life financially, to be able to say those 2 things have been huge for me. One of these pictures, the picture on the left of the street and the buildings, I went to Spain last summer, and that was a dream of mine. I mean, I dream of traveling the world, and to be able to have taken 2 weeks off. Not only did I take 2 weeks off, I got paid to take 2 weeks off because I get paid time off. I didn't have to worry about any money being lost. And I got to see Spain. And anytime I look at those pictures, I was looking at them today, like something happens in my heart. I love Spain. I would love to live there. That was honestly like a dream come true for me. And from somebody didn't grow up with a lot, and I didn't travel. My family doesn't travel like that. I never saw, other countries like that. That was huge for me. And then the picture at the bottom left is one of my students. She actually worked for me as well, and she's off in her job now that she has graduated. But one of the things I appreciate so much from waiting tables, I hated it. The work, the money was good, I'm not gonna lie, but I hated the work. I hated it so much. And to be able to have a job, I mean, I'm not making a ton of money. I'm just going to be perfectly honest. Once I get my master's degree, hopefully that will change. But I love my job. And I can't tell you, 3 years later, I still feel so lucky to have a job that I actually enjoy, that my time is being compensated. I work with people that care about me, and I get to do what I love. I get to see students graduate. Graduation is my favorite time of year. I make it a point to go to both graduations and just to see everybody get to move on to that next phase of their life, because I know what I've experienced, what they're like right on the verge on of experiencing. It's just like the greatest thing for me. And so I think, in short, being able to, and I'll say one other thing, being financially independent. My mom, she doesn't have a degree, neither of my parents. My dad has an associate's degree. He works at a hospital. He actually does pretty well for himself for not having a bachelor's degree. Both of my parents do well for themselves. They work really hard. But as a woman, being financially independent is not something that I have seen in my family. I'm not married. I don't have a partner. I live by myself. I take care of myself pretty good. And that is something that was really important to me, because my grandmother, didn't have that opportunity. She had a lot of kids, and that was her job. And she did great at it, but she was stuck in an unhappy marriage. And, I've seen my mom struggle. I've seen both my parents struggle with their relationships, but my financial independence has been huge for me. And so for women, and particularly for women of color, that's why I talk about, as women, we got to elevate ourselves, because that financial independence is huge. Because you can do anything for yourself. You could do whatever you want to do, whatever you need to do for yourself, without relying on anybody. And there's a lot of power in that. That's my story. Thanks.
Thank you, Tisha. We will probably save questions now for more towards the end, just because I want to make sure we have time for everything. But thank you, Tisha, for sharing your story. My story is a little bit different, because I got pretty fortunate in my undergraduate degree. So I ended up attending CSU in Fort Collins. That's where I grew up. I didn't want to move away from my family, because we are very, very close. And so I only applied to CSU. I didn't apply anywhere else. I went straight through. And so then again, when I was looking at graduate programs, I was like, there's no way I'm moving far from my family. And so I did look into other grad programs, and I had a lot of mentors who encouraged me to apply to at least 3. But I just put in all of my faith, which I don't know if I suggest it really, but I was fortunate, and I got in my program right away. And I did not get funding right away, which was a really challenging part of my experience. And it really hit me hard, because we had to interview in my grad program in order to get what I explained earlier that are called assistantships. And so, like I said, it paid for my tuition. They gave me a monthly stipend that I could use for food and rent and clothes, whatever. And I did not get one of those right away after interviewing. And I always struggled interviewing. And we have a workshop on Friday just about that specifically. But I didn't get one right away. And so that really stunk. But I still was able to do my program, and I ended up getting a position a different way, and they paid for everything. And then I ended up getting a scholarship because I was low income, and you don't get Pell during graduate school, which is for low income students, but I got another low income kind of grant thing. And then I got another scholarship. So I had most of it paid for, and I did take out a little bit of a loan just because my family was going through some pretty rough times. But the reason I decided to go to graduate school is because I really struggled throughout my undergraduate education, but I had really good mentors, and you can see them in this middle picture. Those are, oh, I might cry. Dang. These are all the people that helped me. I am going to cry. That helped me finish my degree. So they're people that I met my first year of college all the way until I went into graduate school, and they really went out of their way to support me. And so there's a lot of them. And so I really like to encourage students to get mentors and to get people in their life that care about them and will support them, because no doubt I could not have finished without them. But they're there. This is the day of my defense. So in graduate programs, you have to defend your degree, which means that you present in front of a committee the work that you've done. In my case, I had a portfolio-based program, so I had a ton of writing that I did, and I had to show the work from the last 2 years. And then they ask you questions, they evaluate you, all that. Sometimes it's a writing sample, or you write like a chapter or whatever. So that was a day of my defense, really special. And then you can see on the left, that's my certificate, which meant that I passed my defense and I'm able to like get my degree. And so anyway, they're a very big reason why I was able to get into my grad program and how I knew what to do. And all of them really understood how important my family was to me. And that's the other pictures that I have for you is my big brother, his wife, and my little brother. And for me, I grew up with a low income background. You know, I'm the second oldest, but everyone thinks I'm the oldest because I'm the bossy one and likes to take care of everybody. But I really wanted to make sure that I did not have the same life experiences for my little brother that I did growing up. And so that was a big part of my motivation. And then for my kids, I do hope to eventually have children, but I didn't want them to experience the same types of things that I did growing up. And then because I loved working with other first generation students so much, I wanted to do a program in a career where I could continue to work with students that I was passionate about serving. So first gen students like you. And so that's why I decided on my degree program. And I've been really happy and fortunate because everything that I envisioned my life being has happened. You know, I am really lucky that I was able to buy a home last year. And, you know, we've been remodeling it and spending money on that. I never lived in a home, like we've never owned a home. We always lived in small apartments. And when we finally did get a house, like it was a rental house that wasn't really nice. And I hated having people over, but now I can have, you know, guests at my house and I feel proud of it. I'm looking outside my window at my Jeep, and I know this sounds like materialistic, and I promise it's not, but I have this like significant memory of when I was little, and this is gonna sound sad, but I was talking about like dream cars or something like that with this kid, and I mentioned I wanted a Jeep, and I wanted it to be a blue Jeep Cherokee. And he was like, yeah, like you'll ever be able to afford that, because he knew the kind of family that I came from. And it really hurt me. And I still remember that. And so now, like looking at my Jeep and being like, forget you, like I got this Jeep, is a really special thing for me. And having my own home, like I said. And then lately, being able to help my family more. You know, when my family goes through different financial challenges, I feel like I'm the one that they can go to now to get that support. My mama, I ended up giving her my car, which is why I got my Jeep, because her car broke down and she didn't have anything to get herself to work. And I was able to do that because of the place I'm in now financially. And just like Tisha, it's not like I'm rich. It's just that I've made good choices on how I've spent my money. and how I've set myself up, but it is really special for me to be able to do that and to be able to just help my family in ways that I couldn't if I didn't get my graduate degree. And then, like I said, and what Tisha said too, being able to do something that I'm passionate about. Like, I love my job and I love everything that I get to do. And I always just feel so lucky and so blessed. But for all of you and for Tisha and for myself, like, it's not just that we're lucky, but it's because like we work hard and we work to earn what we have. And so your journey to grad school, I don't think is going to be easy, because it isn't, but it's going to be worth it. And so I hope that you all get that message from all the things that we've done over the last week and then now this week. So yeah, I think I shared what I wanted. I got a little emotional. I forgot what I was saying, but
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, do you want to say something, Tisha?
No, it reminds me, I remember, I'm going to tell a little story about Sam real quick. We had an event at school. It was the symphony and dinner, and Sam like drove us from campus, some of us that were working the event, from campus to the venue. And we're like, oh, what a nice car you have. And she was like, she got so embarrassed about it. She's like, yeah, I'm really embarrassed about it. But then she explained, she's like, I always wanted to have a nice car, because when you don't have nice things or you don't get to travel, like, these are the things that we aspire to, that we're working for, right? And so I just remember like her saying how embarrassed she was, about having a nice car, but she still likes it, right? Because those are things that we grew up with. So I know, Sam, and it's not materialistic, and it's nice to be able to be proud of what you have earned, because we've both worked really hard, and we continue. Sam, I know, works very hard at her job and what she does, and when you see the fruits of your labor produce, like, there's no there's it's so hard to describe like how amazing it is when you can pause and be like, wow, like, I made that happen. And so
Yeah.
like, y'all are on your path, to get there too. So yeah.
Okay. This last part is about how you can talk to your family. And this can be used if you have your own partner, if you have kids, if you have parents, or whatever, any person that you consider family, even friends, actually. But yeah, if you categorize them in the family category, we wanted to come up with some tips to help you, because like Tisha mentioned earlier, and something I experienced myself, like, as soon as I finished my bachelor's, my family was like, what? You want to go do another degree? Like, come on, you just finished. Just go work, make some money. Don't do more schooling. And not because they don't support me, but just because I think they don't understand the importance. And so that's kind of the bullets that you see here. And Tisha, maybe we could go every other or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we just showed you the financial benefit from getting your advanced degree, going to graduate school. So you can keep this PowerPoint, keep this video on YouTube, whatever. There's going to be links as references on the next couple slides, but talk to them about how it can help you financially. I think that's going to, at least for my dad specifically, he was like, oh, okay, if you can make more money, like, go ahead. So that's one example.
Yeah, and I think as far as advancement, like, I'm going to use myself as an example. As an academic advisor working in education, I am limited, not only the positions that I qualify for, but the amount of money that I'm going to make. I can make a little bit more than I'm making now, but it's definitely a cap without a master's degree. I actually have class tonight at 5 I'm in my master's program, so I'm hoping to, I don't know how quickly I'll be able to work through it, but I'm wanting to get it done, because I do have an interest in, doing something beyond being an academic advisor, where I can make a little bit more of an impact, because not only am I limited by the positions and the amount of money that I can make, but the impact that I can make, if I continue to stay in education, is going to be limited, because my position and my degree are going to limit me in the types of meetings I get to be a part of and the decision-making process that I get to be a part of. And so that's why it's also super important to, for me to get my master's degree at a minimum, if not, my PhD, but that's way down the line for me. Because I want to be able to continue to make those changes, and I can't do it where I'm at right now. I'm very limited on what I can do. So that's, I know that about my field. I did my research on that and I knew that coming in. So yeah.
The next one is explain short-term sacrifices for long-term goals. And this kind of relates to the workshop we had earlier today. But I think something that I had to constantly tell my family again is like, yes, I'm not around that much right now. Yes, I cannot go to all the family events. Yes, I'm not going to always answer your phone call because I had to make those kind of boundaries for myself. But this is only for 2 years for me, however long it is for you all. This is only 2 years that Sam is not going to be as present in your life versus the long time that I'm going to be able to support you financially and help you out when you need it, and also help myself and my family. I think it was hard and it didn't always feel like it was going to be short, but it actually is. Like, it's a temporary time in your life, and the long-term benefits are going to outweigh the time, the stress, the extra money, all of that stuff while you're going through the process. And so that is something that I thought was really important to share with you all. And Tisha thought so too, about how you can talk to your family, like short-term sacrifice, long-term goals.
Yep. And I think establishing boundaries, I think that just ties into what Sam is talking about. You have to be really disciplined. Like, I work full time, I work 40 hours a week. Sometimes I work more than that. Sometimes we work quite a bit more than that. And then I have homework on the weekends. So I have to be really mindful of my boundaries and my time on the weekends. I allow myself some time for rest and something enjoyable, but sometimes I don't even get that. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you need to read all weekend so you can write that paper on Sunday, or get started on it. And so just being really, setting boundaries for yourself on your time, who you're investing your time with. Sometimes that means setting boundaries with people and family, and they have to, like, you want people that are going to support you, and sometimes it means having a hard conversation like, hey, like, I'm working towards something and it is really hard and I want to spend time with you, but I need you to support me. I know you want to see me and I can't spend time with you right now, but I need somebody to cheer me on because this is hard. And so sometimes you got to have those, very frank and honest conversations and tell people what it is that you need from them. So that way you can enjoy each other's time and do whatever that means for you afterwards. You got to set boundaries with your time and people.
Yeah. And for me, like I just mentioned, not taking phone calls, not going to certain family events, there was a lot more to my experience that maybe I can talk about at some point if you're interested. But I think that those boundaries are so important. And then negotiating family responsibility is kind of tied with that. But for me, I played a really big role in my little brother's life. And at some point, I just couldn't do that. And I had to negotiate that with my family and to share how much time and energy my grad program was taking, and how it wasn't that I didn't want to be invested in them, but I just couldn't do well, for me and help them at the same time. And so if that is financial, if that's taking care of someone in your life, or I don't know, for me, like, we try to get together a lot with my family. And so time in person was a big thing. But I would, try to be like, hey, can my big brother pick up Jaden after school instead of me this week, or stuff like that, So negotiating those responsibilities to try to make it work for you, I think, is going to be important.
Can we address a question in the chat?
Yeah, I can't see the chat, so I just keep talking.
Oh, I got it. So it says, Pablo says, what if I want to get my master's degree in something different from my bachelor's? Is that bad? A few semesters ago, a professor told me that you should not get your master's from the same school that you got your bachelor's, but never said why. I want to speak to that because I had, I forgot to mention, after graduation in spring 2017, I applied to DU and I got into the program, their Masters of Higher Education. I was there for a year and I quit. I did not like the program. It was not a good fit for me. I was pressured. I allowed myself to be pressured by other people's opinions. And so last year I applied for UC Denver's master's degree in Spanish, which is what I should have done in the first place, which is what I was thinking I was going to do in the first place. I just needed to think about it. But anyways, so don't, like, if you see a master's program at Metro and you graduate from Metro and you feel like that's the program for you, then you apply to that program. Don't listen, take people's advice, listen to what they have to say and take it with a grain of salt, because you're going to be the one that has to live with the decision. You have to feel comfortable in that program. You have to feel like it's a good fit, because let me tell you, not only can it potentially be a lot of money, but it's a lot of work and a lot of time. And it's going to make your undergraduate look like a cakewalk, chances are. So you want to make sure that you are the one that makes the decision for the best fit that is for yourself. Don't let anybody pressure you or tell you like, oh, you're making a mistake. That's not going to be a good program. I had a bad experience. Like, let your gut tell you what is the right thing for you. Don't let anybody else decide that for you.
I so agree. Can I say something about doing your master's and undergrad in the same place? For me, I loved it because, I showed you those people who are the people who supported me through, but I didn't just have them during undergrad. I kept having them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have to establish new connections because they were already there for me. So when I was, doubting myself, wanting to drop out my first semester, or my family, went through this really rough time, I could go and cry on their shoulder. You know what I mean? Like, they were there for me. So I feel like it's a benefit, and I really liked it. But I agree with what Tisha said about what works for you. That's what worked for me.
Sam, there's another question. What was your final paper exam thing about? So you had to write a thesis, right?
So mine was not thesis, it was portfolio. And I could show it to whoever asked that sometime, because
Pablo.
Oh, Pablo, I would love to show you. I'm really proud of it. So mine was, it's called Fear of, or Failing Star. Failing Star, because I had imposter syndrome super bad during my grad program, which is, just like immense self-doubt. And so I was always thinking I was going to fail and I was going to mess up. And so mine centered around all the times I thought I was going to fail and all the times I succeeded, even though I thought I wouldn't. And I basically, in a portfolio type program, you bring writing samples and work samples and all that, and you culminate it to show how you've met the learning outcomes of the program. But I would be happy to show you sometime if you want to see.
And most grad programs, most master's programs, not all, but most, will offer you either a portfolio option or a thesis option. I haven't decided. I had originally said I'm just going to do the portfolio because that's going to be easiest. But I've been so inspired by some of my classmates and how brilliant they are in what they are working on. For this one girl is working on her thesis, and it sounds amazing. And I know that I can do that. And that's what sounds like it's going to be harder. And I think I'm gonna take the thesis option, but I'm a ways off that. I don't have to decide that yet. But ask me a year from now. Let's see if there's any more questions. Are you required to have a master's degree to get into higher education? No, but like me, you're going to be limited on how much money you're going to be able to make and what kind of positions you're going to be able to take. So most people, not all, but most of us do have master's degrees or are working on our master's degrees in higher education, because it's just, you're limited and you get burnt out working the same position year after year because they ask a lot of us.
I think it also depends on school, because the part of the reason why I did get my master's right away is because my mentor told me it would be harder for me to get a job at CSU unless I got my master's. Because like I said, I didn't ever want to move away. I changed my mind. But some universities work a little different than MSU. I've noticed MSU is a lot more open to hiring people who don't have master's degrees.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this conversation really leads into a lot about what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Just based on the kind of questions that y'all are asking. If you have time tomorrow, come to the workshop tomorrow, because we're going to answer some of these questions that you've been asking in a little bit more detail. And then there might be some other things that maybe you didn't think about, as far as like getting help funding your degree, and figuring out ways like, how am I going to live, Micah, in New York, right? Is that where you're going to school? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's pretty scary.
yeah. So if you can attend, I encourage you to attend, because we might have some tips for you. And I think I wish somebody had told me the things that I tell my students, because I didn't have anybody. Wasn't very well connected at that point in my life. And I will just say, there's not any one way to go about getting your master's degree. And if you find yourself in a situation that isn't working out for you, in a program that's not working out for you, you don't have to, you can stop, and you can just either put it on pause or say, I need to reevaluate. That's what I did. And I'm so glad I did not. I mean, I would have had my master's degree by now, but to be honest with you, I'm so glad that I did not stay in that program, because it was not a good fit. I did not enjoy it, and I wasn't happy. And I love what I'm studying right now. I'm so excited about it. And this is what, this is what it's about, right? You want to enjoy it, more than anything else. I mean, that's how I feel about it. And, it's going to help me get a better job at some point. And, you have to follow what is right for you. And I think when you do that, I think the opportunities, begin to present themselves for you to be able to, like the universe or whatever you believe in begins to support your goals and your efforts, not without work on your behalf, but the opportunities begin to present themselves. So please come if you can tomorrow.
Yeah. I think maybe we're over time, but were you answering the question, is there a difference in financial advancement benefits for people who get their degree later in life?
I didn't see that one. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I'll just answer real quick. I forgot what I was trying to answer. Oh, later in life. I have not seen research on that. I think, to me, life circumstances play a big role in graduate programs. Like Tisha shared, she didn't like her program. She took a little bit longer to do her undergraduate degree. So she's kind of doing her program later in life. And for me, I had the opportunity to just like power through, both my undergrad and graduate degree. But I don't think it makes a difference in earnings of like when you do it. But I guess if you think about it, the sooner you do it, the sooner you can make more money. And so that would be the only thing I would tell you there. But I think you have to weigh in. For me, I'm thinking about getting my PhD, and I'm like, okay, well, how soon am I going to have kids? Like, how soon am I, I'm trying to weigh those things that will be happening in my life. Not that soon, but like soon-ish. I hope I just figured out how I can open the chat when I'm presenting. Did we get all the questions?
I think we did. I did accidentally miss that one, but I think we did get all of the questions. You can also email us, if there's anything you wanted to talk about, or any advice you're looking for, or just to, talk out what you're thinking with somebody. This is what we do. Feel free to contact us. We don't have all the answers. And like I said, take the advice that you get with a grain of salt, and incorporate it into your decision making, and be like, okay, this is, I'm going to take some of this. I'm not going to take that. and you know, see if it helps guide you to what you need to do for yourself, not because we say this is the best thing to do.
For sure. I wanted to say one more thing before we hang up, actually 2 more things, but they'll be quick. First one is, one thing that I realized we didn't really explicitly mention, but I think someone was kind of alluding to this in their question, but a graduate degree is really good if you're trying to switch career fields. So if you don't love what you got your undergrad degree in, that is okay. Get a master's. I encourage you. Well, I don't think my friend Hector even talks about this, but my friend Hector came in, shared a story on Friday. Actually, he did. He got a degree, human development family studies. A lot of people go into education who get that degree. He did not love it. And so now he's getting his business master's degree, or MBA, Master's of Business Administration. So that's a good example. Those are 2 different, completely different career fields, but he was still able to do that. Once you have your bachelor's, the world is open. So some programs may have prereqs that you have to do, like some psych programs have prereq classes. It just depends, but it is a good way to switch careers if you don't like what you're doing. The last thing I wanted to say is thank you all for coming and for being here and for thinking about getting your graduate degree. I really want to empower you all because I believe that you can do it. I know that you can do it. And it's, like I said, it's going to be a hard journey, but it's going to be amazing and it's going to bring a lot of fruit from the difficult journey. So as hard as it is, you can make it.
Yep.
Thank you, Tisha and Sam, for this workshop.